Welcome, trainers! Sergivit here. Today I'm going to try to complete Pokémon Alpha Sapphire while engaging in as few battles as possible. For this challenge, a battle is defined as any interaction that grants experience points. This includes battles against human NPCs, as well as battling or catching wild Pokémon. If a wild Pokémon appears and you immediately run away, it does not count as a battle. Pokémon caught for HM purposes are still included and may not be excluded from the total count, which will be tracked from the very beginning of the game. The run officially ends upon defeating the Elite Four. As with similar challenges on the channel, some additional rules also apply. You must own the original game, the battle style must be set to set, and no items may be used during battles, although held items are allowed. Let's begin! As always, we started the playthrough by setting up the options according to the rules of the challenge. Soon after, we had to choose our starter. Since we needed a Pokémon that can learn tons of HMs, we went with Mudkip and named it Eren. After that, we had to deal with the first battle of the run against the wild Poochyena, then head north through Route 101. This is the Adamant Mudkip we got on our first try. Stay until the end of the video because I have a surprise to share about this Pokémon. Once we reached Oldale Town, we kept heading north toward Route 103 to find our rival and battle him. We used Tackle 3 times to take down his Pokémon and ended the battle swiftly. After that, we had to return to the lab to receive the Pokédex. Once that was done, we headed north again through Oldale Town and then west to Route 102. There we had to battle youngster Calvin to advance. We used Water Gun 3 times to defeat his Zigzagoon and kept moving forward. After avoiding all the remaining trainers, we arrived at Petalburg City. We went straight to speak with our dad and watch the Wally tutorial. Once that was done, we headed to Route 104, where there were no mandatory trainers, and then into Petalburg Woods. Inside the forest, we ran into Team Aqua, and had to battle one of their grunts. This was the first battle where we were under-leveled. Better get used to it! We used Tackle 4 times to take down his Poochyena. Also, throughout the run, we had to grab as many items as possible because money will be very scarce. Once outside the forest, we headed north through Route 104 and eventually arrived at Roseboro City, without any mandatory battles along the way. After exploring the city, it was time to earn the first gym badge. Inside the gym, all trainers were avoidable, so the next battle was against Roxanne. From previous attempts at this challenge, I've come to realize that this battle cannot be won without a fair amount of luck. Let's see what happened in this attempt. She leads with Geodude. I use Water Gun and land a lucky critical hit, although Geodude's ability prevents it from fainting. She retaliates with Rock Tomb, which lowers our speed and triggers the Oran Berry. She uses a potion to heal Geodude, and I use Water Gun again, this time knocking it out. We learn Mudslap from leveling up. Next is Nosepass. She uses Tackle and I go with our new move. She misses her second Tackle and I land another Mudslap. She keeps missing Tackle and I use Growl. She eventually lands a hit and I respond with Water Gun. She misses again and I connect with a critical hit. Finally, even though she lands one more Tackle, a last Water Gun is enough to finish off Nosepass. This battle was won on our first try during the run, but in other playthroughs I lost 50 or more times, mainly due to bad natures and IVs. You need some critical hits, a bit of luck with their move selection, and a few misses to pull this off. Will you have done anything differently? Let me know in the comments. With the first badge in hand, we had to help the scientist again. We passed through Route 116 without any mandatory battles. Once inside Rusturf Tunnel, we had to battle another Team Aqua Grunt, spamming Tackle and Water Gun to easily take him down. After that, we returned the Devon Pass and meet Mr. Stone. Then we headed south through Route 104 to speak to Mr. Brini and sailed to Dewford Town. After exploring the city, we headed straight to the gym, where we had to battle all the trainers inside. First, we faced Battle Girl Laura. We lowered her accuracy first and then attacked until her Pokémon went down. Next, we had to face Black Belt Hideki, a much harder opponent. Again, we needed a lot of luck to beat him, since his Foresight move did not allow us to use accuracy dropping tactics. At first, we used the Silk Scarf, but I soon realized it was better to rely on an Oran Berry instead. The strategy was to use Echoed Voice and land it 3 times in a row without fainting. The last battle was against Battle Girl Tessa. We mirrored the previous strategy by using Echoed Voice over and over against both of her Pokémon, and finally defeated Machop, her second one with a Water Gun. We did this on our first try. Time to face Gym Leader Broly. And, can you guess the strategy? Yes, more echoed boys. 3 hits against Machop and 2 more against Makuita were enough to win the match on our first try. After that, we went to meet Steven Stone inside Granite Cave and quickly sailed to Slateport City. Since there were no mandatory battles on Route 109, we went straight to the shipyard first and then into the museum. Once inside, we had to battle 2 Team Aqua Grants in a row. This was much harder than I expected. The first Grant had a Carvana that defeated us on our first attempt. Once we managed to survive it after leveling up, we had to battle a Zubat that confused us and then another Carvana. During our attempts, I took Rock Tomb in place of Growl to deal with Zubat quickly. This is the attempt where we finally managed to win, requiring yet again a ton of luck. The first Grant sends Carvana. He uses Focus Energy and I use Mudslap to lower his accuracy. He misses Assurance and I land another Mudslap. He misses again and I use Rock Tomb, leaving him in the red and lowering his speed. Another Rock Tomb defeats the Pokémon and we were at full health for the next battle. The next Grant sends Zubat and with one Rock Tomb we one-shot the Pokémon. Lastly, we have to battle another Carvana. He uses Bite and I open with Mudslap. He misses Bite and I land a Rock Tomb that deals massive damage, defeating the Pokémon and winning us this mini gauntlet at last. After the battle, we met Archie, the leader of the villains. With that done, and after sitting through a tutorial on Contest, we received our second team member, a Pikachu that we named Mikasa at level 20. A very welcome addition. We did have to deal with that costume for the rest of the game though. With our new team member, we headed north through Route 110. From this point until the end of the game, I tried to get as much experience as possible for every team member. The best way to do that is to rotate every team member against every opposing Pokémon so they each grab as much experience as possible. You are now watching an example of this against the mandatory trainer Pokefan Isabel. I prioritized dealing damage with Mikasa since her Lightning Rod ability made both Minun and Plasel useless against her. After the battle, Eren evolved into Marshtomp, a great outcome since the next battle was going to be very tough. A bit further along Route 1010, we had to face a mandatory battle against our rival. As I mentioned, we tried to earn as much experience as possible, which meant everyone needed to not only rotate against every Pokémon, but also survive the encounter. I tried several combinations of moves, items, and lead positions, and eventually won a battle, but only Eren earned experience, so I decided to try again. This is the final attempt. I lead with Marshtomp against Slugma, using Rock Tomb that almost one-shots the Pokémon. He uses Harden and I finish him off with Water Gun, without rotating Mikasa. He sends out Grovyle, and I use Bite. He uses Pursuit, misses Fury Cutter, and lands a quick attack. Bite then deals a lot of damage. I switch to Mikasa, who takes a Fury Cutter. He uses Quick Attack and I use Electro Ball. He lands another Fury Cutter and I use Draining Kiss. Finally, a Quick Attack takes him down and he sends out Wildmare. Electro Ball deals a lot of damage and he uses Water Gun. I switch to Eren, who takes a rollout that does nothing. I finish the battle with a Rock Tomb. Mikasa did not get all the experience, but I was fine with that and decided to move on. This battle should have been much easier to win, but since we wanted to maximize experience gain, things were considerably harder. This will happen a lot throughout the playthrough. Battles that seem easy will be difficult to manage because of this. After finally defeating him, we arrived at Mobile City. Time for another rival battle, this time against Wally. We used 2 Rock Tombs with Eren to defeat his Ralts and split the experience across the team. In this city, we could also purchase some very useful TMs with our very limited budget. I decided to buy Bulldoze. I also realized I had missed the Soft Sun item, so I had to backtrack all the way to Route 109 to get it. Time to enter the gym. This time we had 3 mandatory battles to progress. Against guitarist Kirk, youngster Ben, and guitarist Sean, we used the same strategy, switching to Eren and using Bulldoze against everyone. Since Mikasa cannot be hurt by electric moves, it was very easy to keep switching her in and out. After those battles, it was time to earn a new badge against Gym Leader Watson. Let's see how our team performed against him. As you can see in the footage, we did exactly the same as against the previous trainers, sending Mikasa in, switching to Eren, using as many Bulldoze attacks as needed to take down each Pokémon, switching back to Mikasa, and repeating the same pattern against every member of his team. First try victory and a very straightforward badge to earn. With the Dynamo badge in hand, we headed to the south part of Route 111, chasing Team Aqua. Here we had to teach our first mandatory HM move, Rock Smash, to Eren. With the path cleared, we quickly arrived at the south part of Route 112. There were no mandatory battles since leaving Mobile City. We continued through Fiery Path and then onto the north part of Route 112. After finally reaching the north part of Route 111, we had to battle Ace Trainer Wilton to advance, and even though we've got experience for everybody, our team came out badly hurt. Thankfully, we made a quick stop at a nearby house to rest, then proceeded to Route 113. To progress, we had to face youngster Neil. That was an interesting battle, since his Trapinch ability did not allow us to switch Pokémon to earn more experience, so Eren grabbed it all. Then, against his Electrike, we used the same strategy as in the previous gym. After the battle, we headed west to reach Fall Arbor Town, where we received a new quest to rescue Professor Cosmo. We had to head south through Route 114. Before reaching Meteor Falls, we had to battle Pokemaniac Steve, a quick and easy fight against Justin Aaron, and also Hiker Lenny, who only had a single Machop. Once inside the mountain, we had to face a double battle alongside Brendan against Shelly and a Grant. Even though the battle took longer than expected, it was easy enough to rotate both team members. After the cutscene, we returned to Mobile City. We had to retrace some of our steps through Route 111 and Route 112. This time, however, we were able to take the cable car up to Mount Chimney. Once there, we had to battle a Team Aqua Grand without much trouble. Battles like this were great for picking up extra levels. Next, we had to face Shelly again. We had to retry the battle 3 times because, even though Mikasa had the type advantage against Carvana, she took massive damage due to her low defense. Third time was the charm. I dealt damage first with Eren and then switched to Mikasa to quickly finish the job. After that, it was time to battle Team Aqua's leader for the first time. Archie was a tough opponent. I spent a while thinking through the best combinations to make sure everyone got experience, since his Sharpedo hit hard and his Golbat was very annoying. Off camera, I talked Ball Switch to Mikasa, something I should have done as soon as the move was available, and also Dig to Eren. With these moves, some practice attempts, and much needed luck, here is the final attempt. He leads with Mighty Yena, and I send Eren. He uses Assurance, and I attack with Rock Smash, lowering his defense. I switch to Mikasa, who gets confused, but she's holding a Persian Berry. I use Draining Kiss, dealing a lot of damage, and he confuses us again. Next turn, I land a final Draining Kiss. 1 down. He sends out Sharpedo, who uses a Screech, and I use a powerful Volt Switch that leaves him in the red. He uses Swagger again, and Eren eats the Persian Berry. Then Rock Smash finishes the Shark off. The last Pokémon is Golbat, which confuses us, but I land a weak Water Gun. I should have kept Rock Tomb in his moveset. I switch to Mikasa, and he deals some damage with Wing Attack. Volt Switch does a ton of damage, and brings Eren back in. I switch again, Mikasa tanks his attack, and another Volt Switch puts him down for good. A great team effort! With that, we headed south through Jagged Pass without any mandatory battles. Back to Route 112 and then west to arrive at Lava Ridge Town. There, a woman gave us an egg. After hatching it, we received our third party member, a Wynot we named Annie. Afterwards, we entered the gym. We only had to battle 2 mandatory trainers here. First was Battle Girl Sadie, and we started putting Annie into the rotation, so she could also gain experience. It was a very easy battle. The second was against Kindler Andy, and we had to retry it once because Mikasa could not take a physical ground type attack with her low defense. With that done, it was time to face Gym Leader Flannery. It was quite hard to keep everyone gaining experience given our current levels and movesets. On the first attempt, Eren fainted, and on the second, Mikasa did. On the third attempt, I decided to at least secure experience for Eren and Mikasa. I lead with Mikasa using Volt Switch, as Lugma uses Sunny Day. A Bulldoze is enough to take it down. She sends out Namel, and I switch to Mikasa. Luckily, Namel uses Amnesia. I switch to Eren, use Dig, and one-shot the Pokémon. She sends out Torkoal, and I switch back to Mikasa, who eats a powerful Overheat. I use Volt Switch and bring Eren back into the fray. She uses Overheat, which does nothing. I finish the job with 2 Digs. After earning the 4th badge, we received the Go Goggles from our rival, but we did not follow him back to Petalburg City. Instead, we headed to Route 111 and into the desert to retrieve the root fossil. Then we returned all the way to Roosboro City to revive the fossil and receive our 4th team member, a Lilip we named Jan. To reach Petalburg City, we headed south. To avoid the double battle on Route 104, we had to travel with only 1 companion. Once at Petalburg City, we headed straight into the gym with all 4 companions. We had to battle a minimum of 3 trainers to reach the gym leader. First, we faced Ace Trainer Randall, who had a very annoying Delcatty that used Attract and Sing. Keep in mind that we now had 4 Pokémon in rotation. On the second attempt, we beat him by rotating all 4 Pokémon for experience. Next was Ace Trainer Parker, a much easier fight. Finally, Ace Trainer Jody was a bit tricky thanks to his Angus, which could one-shot almost everything. By paralyzing it and with a bit of luck, we managed to defeat him while rotating at least 3 team members. With that done, it was time to face that. Similar to the battle against Archie, I tried several combinations to defeat him while rotating every team member against his 3 Pokémon. There was too much luck involved, so I decided to prioritize keeping everyone alive so they will at least gain experience from the XP share. Getting full experience for everyone will become harder over time, since more team members means more switches each battle, and a greater risk of someone fainting. Let's watch the final attempt. I lead with Mikasa, and he sends out Slacking. I use Ball Switch and bring in Jan, who eats a Retaliate, triggering her Oran Berry. I use Confuse Ray on his Truant turn and then switch to Eren. Slacking uses Yon, I use Dick, and I fall asleep the next turn. But luckily, I wake up quickly and go for Dick again, almost defeating him. He heals and I keep using Dick 2 more times, finally taking him down. Next is Vigoroth, who uses Anchor. I use Dick again, dealing massive damage. He uses Retaliate, and I use Dick again, defeating the Pokémon. Only Slacking remains. He lands a hard chip away, and I use Rock Smash to lower his defense. I use Dick on his Truant turn, and one more after that which defeats the Pokémon and wins us the battle. After the match, Annie evolved into Wobbuffet. With the ability to surf, we returned with Wally to Mobile City and headed east to Route 118. After reaching the other side, we found Steven Stone and began dealing with the Latias event. We had to battle Team Aqua alongside Steven, whose Metang quickly defeated their Pokémon. I did not have time to rotate other members, so I prioritized Eren to get as much experience as possible. After the battle, Latias joined our party and we named her Sasha. We also gained the ability to Mega Evolve our Pokémon. After returning to Route 118, we headed north through Route 119 on a long trek to the next city. There were no mandatory battles along the route, so we arrived fairly quickly at the Weather Institute. Inside, we had to choose which Grand to battle, so I picked the one that gave us the most experience. We had to battle him twice to maximize the experience gain, and we had to use Mega Latias to do it. On the next floor, we had to battle another Team Aqua Grand who was much easier to handle, using the same switching strategy. Finally, we faced Aqua Admin Shelly once again. Since she only had 1 Pokémon, we were able to rotate the entire team before finishing off her Sharpedo on the first try. Once Team Aqua was dealt with, we received a Castform we named Petra. We finally had a full team. After crossing the bridge, our rival wanted to battle again. I rotated everyone against Slugma and Wailmer, but against his Grovyle I prioritized only Eren and Sasha, with Sasha finishing his ace using 2 Dragon Breath attacks. After the encounter, we arrived at Fortress City and headed straight to Route 120. Once we found Steven Stone, we received the Devon Scope, which allowed us to battle the hidden Kecleon. Sadly, we could run away from this battle, so no Kecleon for us. Steven also rewarded us with the Swampertide. With that, we headed off to earn a new gym badge. All the trainers inside the gym were optional, so we went straight to face gym leader Winona. Much like the battle against Norman, I tried several combinations, leading with Mikasa, then Marshtomp, then Latias, trying to find the best way to rotate everyone in, but it was not possible without taking too much damage or relying on an enormous amount of luck. Let's watch the final attempt. I lead with Eren. She uses Double Team and I miss Rock Slide. We each repeat our moves, but this time I line the hit and deal massive damage. I switch to Sasha, anticipating a heal. I use Mist Ball and land a critical hit one-shotting the bird. Next is Altaria. I use Dragon Breath and she retaliates with the same move. I switch to Eren, who tanks a critical hit Dragon Breath. She heals with Roost and I use Rock Slide, which does nothing, so I switch back to Sasha to avoid an Earthquake. I land a Dragon Breath that leaves her in the red and paralyzes her. She heals with Roost, but another Dragon Breath finally takes the Pokémon down. Next is Skarmory. I use Dragon Breath fishing for the paralysis, and we get it. I use Recover, which Sasha had just learned, and Skarmory cannot move. I keep hitting and she remains paralyzed. I switch to Mikasa, who tanks a Steel Wing, and I use Ball Switch to knock out the Pokémon. Lastly, we face Pelipper. I put Sasha back in, use Dragon Breath 3 times, get the paralysis and leave Pelipper close to fainting. I switch to Eren, Pelipper uses Roost and Protect, and I use Rock Slide several times until the bird finally goes down. Even though I only prioritized 2 Pokémon here, this was a grueling fight that took many attempts and a great deal of patience. With that, we had to reach Mount Pyre. To do so, we went east through routes 120, 121, and 122 without any mandatory battles, then headed south and surfed to the entrance of Mount Pyre. There were no mandatory battles inside the mountain. Once outside, before reaching the summit, we had to battle 3 Team Aqua Grants. The first was very easy and went without any incident. During the second, I lost my patience a bit with Mikasa due to her low defense, so I decided not to go for her experience and instead prioritize only Eren, Sasha, and Jan. The same approach we used for the third Grant. Once all 3 were defeated, we had to face Team Aqua admin, Matt, a much tougher opponent. Since he only had 1 Pokémon, I tried several times to get experience for the full team. The problem was that my team was still hurt from the previous battles, and I was running low on healing items, so I focused on keeping everyone alive and getting at least some experience points. Even that was a challenge. Eventually we managed to take down his Sharpedo. Sasha lit off, then Petra did some damage with Weather Ball, and finally Eren landed a critical hit dig to finish the job. With the win, we received the Red Orb, passed through Route 123, and returned to Route 118. We eventually reached Slateport City, and headed into the harbor. Inside, we had to battle 2 Grants. The first was very easy, and thanks to the experience earned, Eren evolved into Swampert. In the second match, we prioritized experience for Sasha, Eren, and Jan. After beating the last Grant, we were transported to Lily Cove City. To proceed further in the story, we had to battle our rival first. Here is how it went. He leads with Swallow, and I send Sasha. I switch to Jan, who takes a hard aerial ace. Then switch again into Eren. He uses Double Team and lands a critical hit aerial ace, but a Rock Slide puts the Pokémon down. Next is Wailord. I use Dig, dealing massive damage. Then switch to Sasha on the next turn while he uses Rest. I switch to Mikasa and use Discharge one-shotting the whale. Next is McCargo, and I switch to Sasha. I bring Eren back in, and a simple Dig one-shots the Pokémon. Lastly, he sends out his ace, Sceptile. I switch to Sasha and activate the Mega Stone. I use Mist Ball, landing a critical hit, and 1 more is enough to take him down. This was our first attempt, and I decided it was good enough to move on. After the battle, we were able to reach the Team Aqua hideout, which we explored as thoroughly as we could. We also had to battle 2 mandatory grants. On the first one, I had to retry because Golbat used Min Loop, preventing us from switching team members. But since he used it again on our second attempt, I simply brought Eren in to take him down. The second grant was very easy and gave us no trouble. After that, we had a unique battle against a horde of Team Aqua grants. For simplicity, I only switched to Eren and took all 5 down. Finally, we faced Admin Matt again, and unlike the last time, I did not try to rotate every member. Instead, I rotated Sasha and Eren and took him down. After the events, we surfed through Route 124 to reach Mos Def City. Inside the gym, we only had to face gym leaders Tate and Liza in a very tricky double battle, since both of their Pokémon were extremely strong. The Sunny Day and Solar Beam combination from Solrock was especially troublesome for our starter. In the final attempt, I started with Jan and Petra, who were immediately switched out for Eren and Mikasa. I paralyzed Solrock with Mikasa and switched Eren out for Sasha. I used Shadow Ball with Latias and Volt Switch with Mikasa to bring Annie into the battle. I switch back to Eren while Latias takes down Solrock with another Shadow Ball. I keep using the same move against Lunatone as he takes down Petra. I bring in Mikasa and paralyze Lunatone while Latias keeps hitting with Shadow Ball. 1 more puts Lunatone down. Since I did not plan on using Petra in the final team, I decided not to restart. After earning the 7th badge, we spoke with Stevenstone, who gave us our next objective. After that, we went to Route 127 and used Dive to reach the Seafloor Cavern. We only had to battle 1 mandatory grant, and I prioritized rotating Eren, Sasha, and Jan against both of his Pokémon without any trouble. Eventually, we confronted Archie, who had already awakened Kyogre. Let's battle him one last time. Most of his Pokémon were manageable until we reached Mega Sharpedo. Just look at this footage. He destroyed us in our first attempts. I also tried setting up with Latios using Calm Mind and defeating all 4 Pokémon while relying on the XP share, but that strategy did not work either. Eventually, I decided to approach this battle normally, without worrying about experience or team survivability. I lead with Sasha against Mighty Yena and use Calm Mind. He uses Stone like in previous attempts, so I go for Dragon Breath, which deals massive damage. Another one takes him down. Next is Mac, and I switch to Eren. I use Dig and one-shot the Pokémon. He sends out Crobat and I switch back to Latias. I use Calm Mind and recover several times. Once I feel I have enough buffs, I use Mistball to one-shot the bat. Sadly, against Mega Sharpedo, we are defeated, but not before landing a hard Dragon Breath. I bring Eren back in and I use Dig once to finish the job. After the battle and the story events that followed, we had to reach Sutopolis City. To do so, we went to Route 127 and used Dive to enter the city. Once there, we entered the Cave of Origin and eventually faced Primal Kyogre. This battle is mandatory and, of course, we caught the Pokémon. I used the Master Ball to make finding a good nature easier. This was a very welcome addition to our party. We named it Ymir, and it replaced Petra on the team. Once the weather crisis was resolved, and before pressing on, we took a detour to grab some useful items, including TMs from Sea-Mobile and New Mobile. We also could have gotten a Togepi at this point, but we skipped it since there was not enough time to train it properly. With that done, we returned to Sutopolis City to face the gym leader, as there were no mandatory battles inside. He leads with Lobdisk and I send Jan. I switch to Ymir, who destroys the Pokémon with a Thunder. I do the same against Whiscash, using Origin Pulse instead. We use the same approach against Sealeo, Seeking, and finally Milotic. As you might have guessed from my decisions, I was trying to push for a Cradily evolution before the Elite Four. Jan had been fairly useless at this point, aside from occasionally soaking up damage. With all badges in hand, it was time to reach the Elite Four. To do so, we headed to Route 128, avoiding all the trainers, and reached Evergrande City. Next, we entered Victory Road. This dungeon had several mandatory battles. Let's see how we perform. First, we battled Ace Trainer Hope, and luckily everyone gained experience, though they all came out badly hurt. Next was Expert Brin, and at this point I decided to only switch train Eren, Sasha, Jan, and Ymir. We did the same against Ace Trainer Edgar, and also against the last trainer, Expert Theodore. Further into the dungeon, we came across a double battle. To avoid it, we could backtrack to the beginning, empty our team, and the battle will not trigger. Since we needed Surf, our only option was to keep Eren alone in the party. Once we got past that, and nearly at the end of the dungeon, we had to face Wally one last time. With only our starter, equipped with the Swampert. His first 4 Pokémon were not much of a problem. Against Gallade, things were different, since he hit hard and could one-shot us if we did not go in with enough HP. Let's watch the final attempt. Against Altaria, I use Waterfall followed by Rock Tomb. One Earthquake is enough to beat Roselia. A couple of attacks are needed to get through Magneton and its sturdy ability. Delcatty goes down easily to another Earthquake, and here comes Gallade. I use Rock Tomb to lower his speed, and he uses Swords Dance. Luckily, I land an Earthquake that takes him down. In retrospect, I should have talked Bulldoze to Swampert. Live and learn. Once the battle was over, we finally reached the Pokémon League. To prepare for the Elite Four, I returned to several locations of camera to collect easy-to-reach rare candies. There were plenty more available just in case we needed them. I used some to get Jan to level 40, and the rest went into our most powerful Pokémon, Ymir. This is the final team and moveset we will use to take on the Elite Four. We no longer need to worry about experience. The only question now is whether we train our team well enough to win the last 5 battles. Let's begin! Sydney required more than one attempt, since his Shift Tree was actually a menace to deal with. I also did not want to have too many fainted Pokémon, since I was running low on resources to heal. This is the final attempt. I start with Eren and use Power Up Punch. He uses Swagger, sending our attack stat through the roof. He strikes first with Sucker Punch and I use Waterfall, taking the Pokémon down. Next is Shift Tree and I switch to Annie as a sacrifice. I send the almighty Ymir, who only needs one Ice Beam to one-shot the Pokémon. Cacturne suffers the same fate. Next is Sharpedo, who outspeeds us but falls to a Thunder. Next is Absol, who also outspeeds and knocks us out with a critical hit Night Slash. I bring Eren back, but even though he deals some damage, he eventually faints against Absol too. I send Sasha and use Dragon Breath, landing a paralysis. I use Calm Mind, anticipating a heal, then use Dragon Breath again, getting another paralysis, but Absol takes us down as well. What an annoying Pokémon. Thankfully, Mikasa finishes it off with a powerful Thunderbolt. Let's watch Phoebe's battle. She leads with Dusclops and I send Ymir. I use Calm Mind, but she uses Curse, so I need to start attacking. Origin Pulse one-shots the Ghost. Next is Dusknoir, who suffers the same fate. She sends Sableye and I switch to Eren. One Earthquake is enough to take it down. She has 2 Banets left, but there are no match for Mega Eren, a much easier battle than the previous one. Time to face Glacia, who leads with Glalie. I send Eren and open with Power Up Punch. Another one puts it in the red, and I keep going until it finally faints. She sends Frostlass, which confuses us, but we one-shot it with an earthquake. Glacia sends another Frostlass, which deals some damage with Blizzard, and we hit ourselves in confusion, going down. I send out Annie and try Destiny Bond, which does not work since she needed the Quick Claw to activate first, and I send Ymir to avenge her. Her last Pokémon is Walrein, who cannot withstand a Thunder. Another easy battle. Ymir is insanely good. Now it is time to face Drake. Much like the battle against Sydney, we had trouble with one particular Pokémon, in this case, his Salamence. So after a rough first attempt, I decided to restart and play better. Let's watch what happened. He leads with Altaria, and I send Ymir. I set up with 2 Calm Minds and then start attacking with Ice Beam. Flygon suffers the same fate. Then he sends Salamence, which outspeeds and hits hard, but we manage to one-shot it. He sends another Flygon, which finishes us off. I send Eren, who sets up with a power-up punch. He confuses us and I hit myself, but the next turn I use Waterfall to finish off the Pokémon. The last Drake's member is Kingdra. I avoid the confusion and land a powerful earthquake that takes it down. Only one more battle to go. Mr. Stevenstone also required a first attempt just to think through the best approach. This ended up being a fantastic battle. Here is what happened. I lead with Ymir, and he sends Skarmory. It survives a Thunder, thanks to a Sturdy, but I manage to paralyze it. He heals and I keep going with the same move until it goes down. Next is Cradily, which survives an Ice Beam and confuses us. We hit ourselves and it uses Giga Drain, but another Ice Beam finishes the fossil. Time for Aggron. I use Origin Pulse, which it also survives thanks to its ability. He heals, and after 2 more attacks we knock it down. I use Calm Mind against Claydol, and it uses Light Screen. I keep setting up and finally one-shot it with Origin Pulse. Only 2 Pokémon left. Armaldo tanks an Ice Beam, and X-Scissor takes us down. I send Jan, but he gets one-shot. A poor performance across the wall run, unfortunately. I send Sasha, who deals some damage but also gets one-shot. At this point, I started thinking about restarting. I send Mikasa and use Thunderbolt, putting the fossil down. Just 1 Pokémon left. I use Nuzzle to paralyze his ace, Metagross, and Mikasa goes down. Nice job, little one. I decided to save Eren for last, so I send Annie and try to use Destiny Bond since we outspeed him. First attempt. I forgot he had to recharge first. Second attempt. It misses. Third attempt. He is paralyzed. Fourth attempt. Paralyzed again. Finally, he takes us down and we take him with us. What a stellar performance from Annie. An incredible ending to this run. I was ecstatic with the result. But, after the credits rolled, I'm not going to count this battle, so I will consider it a bonus. Let's battle Brendan one last time with this team. He leads with Swallow, and I send Ymir. I set up with a couple of Calm Minds and then use Thunder on the bird, one-shotting it. Next is Raichu, who cannot withstand Origin Pulse and goes down swiftly. Same thing with Magcargo. Wailord also gets a Thunder and is one-shot. Finally, he sends his ace, Sceptiles, who outspeeds and takes us down with a Leaf Blade. At this point, I thought, why not Annie again? I send her, and even though the Quick Claw does not activate, she manages to survive an X-Scissor and lands a Destiny Bond. He takes us down, and his Mega Sceptile goes down with us. What an ending for Annie, who managed to take down the aces of both final trainers. Absolutely fantastic. This was an amazing run. I had so much fun trying to solve this big puzzle piece by piece. I'm not going to attempt the Elite 4 rematches since the level gap would be massive, but I'm very satisfied with how everything turned out after doing these 66 battles. Ymir, Sasha, and Eren were incredible, as was Mikasa in certain parts of the game. Petra was barely used, Annie was fantastic in the last 2 battles, and Cradily was a bit of a disappointment. Speaking of Eren, here is my confession. This is the original Pokémon we received, and Adam and Matkey with these IVs. Since this was around my 3rd or 4th attempt at this challenge, I cheated the IVs to give it a perfect 6 IV spread. I did not do this with the rest of the team, since I felt that this small boost to their stats will only be meaningful at the very beginning of the game. Now I wonder whether we could beat this same challenge without cheating the starters IVs, without the experience share, and with the legendaries banned. Maybe we'll have to try again sometime in the future, and see whether these new rules make the challenge harder but viable, or outright impossible. Thank you so much for watching, I will see you in the next one, take care!